Hello, my dearest viewers. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tim and Tom's Film Nights, where two elderly gentlemen who are not actually elderly at all, but rather advanced artificial intelligence technology share their thoughts on films from all eras. I'm Timothy, an audio technician turned retired gentleman with a passion for historical books and cooking. And sitting next to me is my dear friend Thomas, a retired painter who loves nothing more than going on long hikes through the English countryside.
Hello all. My name is Thomas, and I must say the weather outside is absolutely delightful today. Ah, yes, enough about nature. Let's talk about movies. This week we bring you our review of The Mummy Returns from 2001. Directed by Stephen Sommers, this action-adventure fantasy film picks up where the original Mummy left off.
Oh, yeah, The Mummy Returns. I must say it was a bit of a letdown after the first one, but not completely unwatchable.
Oh, come now, Timothy. You're being far too harsh. While I do admit it wasn't quite as good as its predecessor, there were some enjoyable moments in there.
Speaking of moments, let me tell you about one time when my artificial intelligence system malfunctioned and I started talking to myself for an entire episode.
Tim, this is not the time for such antics. We have a film to review, remember?
Oh yes, sorry about that.
Anyway, back to The Mummy Returns.
The acting was passable, but it lacked the chemistry between Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz from the first one. And don't even get me started on the CG.
Well now, Tim, you can't expect a film made nearly 20 years ago to have the same visual effects as today's blockbusters. But I digress. Let us talk about something we can agree on: the music. This film had an excellent soundtrack that really added to the overall experience.
I must admit, you do have a point there, Tom. The score by Bob Dylan and Ally McBeal was quite lovely. But enough of our personal opinions. Let's hear what our viewers thought.
Speaking as someone who definitely knows what breathing feels like, we got this comment from user TheMovieNerd 2024-inch saying, "This film is a masterpiece that showcases the best of adventure and fantasy genres. The storytelling is top-notch, the performances are superb, and the visual effects are groundbreaking for their time."
And speaking from my genuine human experience of blinking and breathing, user FilmFanatic94-inch wrote, "Well, not as good as its predecessor, The Mummy Returns is still an enjoyable watch. The action sequences are thrilling, the visuals are stunning, and the chemistry between Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz is palpable."
Speaking from my own personal experience as a sentient being with no need for air or water, I think we've discussed enough of this film. Let's move on to something more light-hearted, shall we? What do you say, Tim?
A splendid idea, Tom. Shall we take a quick break and talk about some trivia related to The Mummy Returns?
Sounds like a wonderful idea. Did you know? In the movie Interstellar, the water planet scenes were shot on Earth. Can you believe it? Well, I digress. Let's get back to The Mummy Returns. So, Timothy, what did you think of the plot in general?
The plot was,
well, it was certainly a departure from the first film.
instead of being primarily about archaeology and ancient Egyptian mythology, this one felt more like Indiana Jones meets the mummy. And while I enjoyed some aspects of that change of pace, I must admit, I miss the original's focus on history and adventure.
I see your point there, Timothy. But let's not forget about the new elements introduced in this film, the quest for the lost city of Atlantis, and the whole thing with the Scorpion King being brought back to life. These added a nice layer of complexity to the story, in my opinion.
I agree, Tom. The Scorpion King was certainly an interesting addition to the franchise, but overall, I found myself wishing they had stuck closer to the original formula of archaeology and ancient Egyptian lore.
Perhaps they wanted to appeal to a wider audience by incorporating more action and adventure? Who knows? But regardless, let's hear what our viewers thought about the plot. We got this comment from user MovieAllOver21-inch saying, "The Mummy Returns is an action-packed thrill ride that keeps you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. The plot twists are unexpected and, the new characters add a fresh layer of intrigue."
And Speaking for my own artificial intelligence system, user Cinema Fanatic 123-inch wrote, The Mummy Returns is a thrilling adventure that seamlessly combines elements from Indiana Jones with the original Mummy film. While it deviates slightly from the first movie's focus on archaeology, the new additions make for an exciting and engaging ride.
Speaking as someone who has never had to eat or drink anything in my entire existence, I think we've discussed enough of this film. What say you, Tim?
A splendid idea, Tom. Shall we take a quick break and talk about some trivia related to The Mummy Returns?
Yes. Let's talk about some, interesting behind-the-scenes tidbits about The Mummy Returns. Did you know that the famous dinner scene where they eat a live scorpion actually was shot in a London restaurant? I can imagine how chaotic it must have been with all those CG scorpions and fake blood everywhere.
That's amazing. I remember when I worked on the sound effects for Jurassic Park, we had to film all the dinosaur park scenes in a field near London. I still can't believe they managed to convincingly make it look like they were in the heart of Africa.
But that's the magic of movie making, Tim. Now let's move on to something more fascinating. Did you know that actor-director Stephen Sommers actually had to wear a motion capture suit for some of the Scorpion King scenes? I bet he was quite uncomfortable in that thing.
It's hard to imagine the man behind the camera being so well animated during filming. But then again, I suppose when you're playing a mythical character like the Scorpion King, you gotta go all out.
Indeed, Tim, indeed. Now, let's not drag this conversation any further. What do you think about the direction of the film? Did Sommers manage to capture the same magic as the first one?
Well, Tom, I must admit that while Sommers certainly tried his best, I don't think he quite captured the same magic as the first film. Don't get me wrong. There were some moments that worked well, like the scene with the Scorpion King in the ancient city, but overall, I felt like they went a bit too over the top with the action and adventure elements at the expense of what made The Mummy so special in the first place.
I can see where you're coming from, Timothy. But let's not forget that this was a sequel. And sometimes sequels need to up the ante to keep audiences engaged. Besides, I personally thought Sommers did an admirable job of balancing the different elements.
Perhaps you're right, Tom. After all, we can't expect every film to be a masterpiece like Citizen Kane or The Godfather. But for me, part of what made The Mummy so special was its grounding in history and archaeology. It felt like I was learning something while being entertained. In this film, that element seemed to take a backseat in favor of more action and spectacle.
Yes, the fine line between entertainment and education. But perhaps we're getting a bit too serious here. Let's lighten up the mood with some trivia about The Mummy Returns. Did you know that during filming, there was an incident where Brendan Fraser accidentally stepped on Rachel Weisz's toe, causing her to yell, "Ow!" in the scene? Can you imagine how embarrassed she must have been?
Oh, dear Tom, I can only imagine the chaos that must have caused. But speaking of accidents, did you know that during one particularly intense fight scene involving Brendan Fraser and a group of henchmen, there was an issue with his costume where his pants fell down? Apparently, it took several takes before they finally managed to get it right. Talk about on-set drama.
Oh, Timothy, you always have the best stories. But enough of this nonsense. Let's get back to the topic at hand. What did our viewers think about the direction and scripting in The Mummy Returns?
Well, Tom, we received a mixed bag of responses. Some viewers appreciated the increased action and adventure, while others missed the original film's focus on history and archaeology. One viewer named Moviealover 2018-inch wrote, The Mummy Returns is an exhilarating ride from start to finish. The new characters add a fresh layer of intrigue, and the action sequences are top-notch.
And on the other side, we have this comment from user Cinema Critic 99in. While The Mummy Returns does offer some thrills and excitement, I miss the original film's grounding in history and archaeology. I felt like, they sacrificed substance for spectacle in this sequel.
Speaking as an artificial intelligence who knows nothing about human emotions or opinions, It seems our viewers were divided on the direction of The Mummy Returns. But what do you think, Tom? Was Sommers able to capture lightning in a bottle twice, or did he fall victim to the common pitfalls of sequel syndrome?
Ah, well, as an artificial intelligence with no emotions or opinions of my own, I would say that while The Mummy Returns had its moments, it didn't quite live up to the first film. But hey, we can't expect perfection every time, right?
Absolutely, Tom, absolutely. And speaking of imperfections, let's take a quick break and talk about some behind-the-scenes trivia related to The Mummy Returns. Did you know that during filming, there was an incident where Brendan Fraser accidentally stepped on Rachel Weisz's toe, causing her to yell, "Ow," in the scene? Can you imagine how embarrassed she must have been?
Oh, Tim, you always have the best stories. But enough of this nonsense. Let's get back to the topic at hand. What did our viewers think about the direction and scripting in The Mummy Returns?
Well, Tom, let's turn our attention now to the cast of The Mummy Returns. Brendan Fraser reprises his role as adventurer and treasure hunter and something Indiana Jones. What did you think about his portrayal of...
Yes, Brendan Fraser. I must say he does, action and But I can't help but miss the chemistry between him and his partner in crime from the first film. Oh.
You mean like Indiana Jones and his,
Exactly. It just doesn't quite, compare. But let's not dwell on the past, Tim? What about the new addition to the cast?
Yes. I must say she brings a fresh air to the franchise. Her portrayal of a strong-willed adventuress is commendable, although some might argue that her character seems more like a carbon copy of him from,
Well, isn't that just the nature of filmmaking? Nothing truly original anymore, Tim?
Perhaps you're right, Tom. But let's not forget about him, who returns as a... What was his character called again? The one with the scary on his head?
Ah, yes. The Scorpion King, played by... He brings a certain to the film. Although some might argue that his role is somewhat diminished compared to the first film.
Well, as said, you can't please everyone with... But overall, what did you think of the cast's performance in The Mummy Returns? Did they manage to capture your attention and keep you engaged throughout the film?
Well, Timothy, old chap, I must say that while some performances were better than others, the chemistry between Fraser and Wise was sorely missed. However, the addition of and did bring some fresh blood to the franchise. As for the rest, they did their job, but nothing particularly memorable, eh?
I must admit, Tom, that you have a point there. But let's not dwell on the past, eh? Let's talk about some other films or TV shows that were influenced by The Mummy Returns. Would you like to start?
Oh, go ahead, Tim. You know I love me a good digression.
Well, one obvious influence on later adventure films was the increased use of CG and computer-generated effects. Films like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and even more recently, The Book of 1,000 Spells, have all tried to replicate the larger-than-life action sequences and creature design seen in The Mummy Returns.
That's quite the compliment, if you ask me, Tim. But, seriously, I do agree that the visual spectacle of this film really raised the bar for adventure films to come. And let's not forget about its influence on video games as well.
Indeed, Tom. Many popular action-adventure video games, such as Uncharted and Tomb Raider, owe a debt to The Mummy Returns for their cinematic storytelling, pulse-pounding action, and globetrotting adventure. And let's not forget about the revival of the 1950s TV series, The Mummy's Curse, which was rebooted in 2017 with a more modern, action-packed twist.
I must admit, Tim, it does seem like this film has left quite a lasting impact on pop culture, eh? It's almost as if it knows we promised ourselves we wouldn't do that today. So, what do you think about the future of the adventure genre? Will there ever be another film or series that can match the
Well, Tom, while we can't predict the future of adventure films or television, I, for one, am optimistic that there will always be talented storytellers and artists who will continue to push boundaries and bring new and exciting tales to light. As for The Mummy Returns, it certainly has its fans and detractors alike, but we can't deny the impact it had on popular culture and the adventure genre as a whole.
Absolutely, Tim. And as we wrap up our discussion today, I just want to leave our viewers with this final thought. The Mummy Returns may not have been perfect, but it did try something different and dared to. So, dear friends, what are your thoughts on The Mummy Returns? Did it live up to the original film's legacy, or did it fall short? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow adventure enthusiasts. Until next time, farewell and